Well, hi. Thanks for being here. So I have this practice. Been doing for about 10 years. Most times I do it before I get out of bed. Sometimes I do it after when I'm sitting in meditation. And what I do is I visualize my best self. I imagine walking through the day in feeling that light, that love, feeling that in that realized space, I'm kind, things are happening in my world, and I'm responding from that place of soul's intention. I feel full of vim and vigor, and I'm boisterous, and I'm lighthearted, and really enjoying my day and enjoying my interaction with life itself. I've been visualizing this now and imagining this for myself for over a decade, or just about a decade. In the beginning, when I first started doing it, it took all of 10 minutes for that feeling to disappear. Something would happen, whatever it was, and I'd be in life. Not as my best self. Time passed and I kept at it. I decided this is really, I know that this is going to, at some point, start sinking into my bones. I'm going to start feeling this. This is going to start showing up in my day. And one day when I was into this for a couple of years, my wife said to me, whatever you're doing isn't working. You need to try a different practice. And I thought, no, I really think this is finally going to pay off. I'm going to keep at this. And I started to realize that the issue was I wasn't bringing the practice back in when I needed it most. Dr. Holmes tells us to abandon the truth in your hour of need is to not understand the truth. And clearly I didn't understand the truth because I wasn't bringing it in. And so I came up with this idea of whenever I started behaving in a way that was not my highest and best, to at least asking the question, who am I being now? Who am I being now? Not what do I need to do about this? How can I fix this? Because as you've heard me say lots of times, transformation does not rectify, does not fix, it transmutes. And so it's not about what, it's about who. You've heard me say that a lot. And so I've, began the practice of who am I being now? And at first, to tell you the truth, it didn't really pay off all that much. It didn't change nothing. Except maybe make me feel a little worse about myself. Right? But I kept at it. I kept working at it. I kept the practice up of who am I being now? Who am I being now? And after, a few more years, I started noticing that things started to shift a bit. I started noticing that more of me, that soul's intention me, that higher me was starting to show up in more and more moments during the day. And that when I'd ask the question, who am I being now, there were times when it actually supported me in shifting. And so I was like, all right, this is really starting to pay off. And I kept at it, and I kept at it, and started to see more and more of my days and my moments of me being my best. And I've told you this before, but you would not wanted to have hired me 5 years ago. I was not the person I am now. And the person I am now, I really enjoy. I really like how I am in my day and go about and how I interact with things. And that's really fun. It's really fun to like myself this much because there was a time I really didn't. But now I do. Who am I being now? And yet in the midst of this, I still have days that don't go where I'm at my highest and best. Last Sunday, my wife was up here, and she gave this incredible talk. I was so proud of her, and people exploded out of their seats and gave her this standing O. And I thought, I've never gotten a standing O. My ego, front and center. I was like, hold on a second. I want to be really present for my wife and her celebration here. So I did what maybe many of you do at times. I shoved that part of me down. I didn't transform it. I just pushed it away and really let it go. And Ash and I had a great night. We went out and celebrated her success, went to sleep. And then I woke up Monday morning in quite the funk. And started circling the drain. You know what I mean? When your mind starts spinning, my ego completely in charge. And as I've told you, the ego makes a horrible master, but a great servant. But at this point, it was in charge, spinning about, maybe I'm not so good at this. Maybe all those doubts, oh, maybe I'm not as good at doing this job as I thought. Maybe they don't really like me. They stood for her. Now, I'm not saying that. Be with me here. I'm not saying this because I want you to stand up today. That's not the point of the exercise here. So please get the point of the exercise, which is my ego took over, and maybe you've experienced that too, where all of a sudden your ego's front and center, and you think it's so darn important that it can actually get you circling the drain. Now, here's one of the funniest parts about this. I almost died. You'd think that was a really serious thing, and I never, and so I was 8 days in the hospital. I lost my higher self in a totality of 1 hour in 8 weeks. She gets up here and gets a standing O, and I'm circling the drain for a whole day. Are we silly beings or what? But this is what happens, right? This is what we go through. And so there I am, and at first and I did my morning thing of seeing myself at the highest and best, but I didn't do it very well, obviously. Ask myself whom I'm being now and telling myself to shut up. And I'm moping around. And I'm going, oh my God, I'm moping around. I haven't done this in ages. There was a time in my life when I would fall into the deepest of depressions for upwards of 6 months before I could pull myself out. Normally now it's about 15, 20 minutes at best. But somehow her standing O sent me over some edge. And isn't that interesting? Because we get wounds, right? We have these wounds. And for myself, I thought I healed that kind of stuff. Clearly, I did not. And so it raises its head in this whole new way. And that's so funny. I was about to say it's ugly head, and every time I practice this talking to you today, that's what came up. It's ugly head, but it's not ugly. It's just a wound that needs healing. But it's another way of putting myself down, of shaming myself to think of it as ugly that I'm thinking that way. And maybe you do that too. Because what you don't want to do when you're circling the drain is shame yourself on top of it, because then you're going down. So I'm in this state, and I'm thinking to myself, first, I've been doing this a long time, and I feel pretty advanced along the path. But nothing was really paying off. And so I finally got to, I need to be a beginner at the beginning. I need to not feel so advanced in my spiritual journey. I need to be a beginner at the beginning, because what's happening here is I'm wounded the way I used to be wounded. And this is an old wound of not feeling appreciated, not feeling this, not feeling that, feeling less than. And so I need to be a beginner at the beginning. And one of my first affirmations that I've ever helped me lift myself up was, my life works and I am loved and cared for. Simple, right? I have this thing of thinking of affirmations as life rafts, because they saved me from going down the drain. I would hold on to them so tightly. When I was at the beginning, as a beginner, going through all the stuff that ran through my head that would get me to spin. And here I was, spinning, going, okay, to abandon the truth in your hour of need is to not understand the truth. It's my time to hold on to what I have called life rafts and really allowed it to hold me up. And what I do is, when I do this practice, I do it like a mantra, over and over and over. So over and over and over. And I actually imagine myself like holding on to a life raft, because it helps me. You got to do what works for you. But I'm just saying that you got to find something that's going to get you in those moments when you get taken out the most. Right? And it doesn't matter. It doesn't. The thing about it is it didn't matter that it was something as simple as my wife getting a standing O, as opposed to me, almost dying. It was that this is what had me going. And I could get on my case about that, try to rationalize about that, or do all those things that only make us feel worse. Have you ever tried rationalizing yourself out of feeling bad? Did it ever make you feel better? So the key is this is what's going on. And being okay with that. Being okay with how you're feeling. Being okay with how you're doing. And not adding to it by beating yourself up or putting yourself down or any of those things. Right? The key is, do what's going to actually work. And so I thought, be a beginner at the beginning. Held on to that life raft. My life works. I am loved and cared for. Over and over and over. Pretty much throughout Monday. That was my day. Was just holding on to that. And then Tuesday I woke up feeling better. Wednesday I felt even better. Was more myself. Was more the person I have come here to be. And I didn't look back and go, oh, geez, that took so long. I didn't look back. This is, and so when I was thinking about this, and I was thinking how I went through this and what really worked about all this, here are some of the things that really worked as I went through this part that seemed like I was circling the drain. I never once beat myself up for it. I never once put myself down. I never once shamed myself for feeling that way. And I looked at that and I said, well, that is really different for me. To be that okay with being that upset about something that silly. It's okay. And I thought, that's how this has sunk in. That I could still like myself in the midst of feeling bad about my wife's success. That I could still like myself. Still love that she was successful. Still love that that happened for her. And I think that that's an incredible place for us to grow into. To love ourselves so much that even when we're having a day or two or whatever, instead of beating ourselves up, instead of putting ourselves down, we can feel like it's okay. It's okay to have a day. It's okay to have these feelings. It's one of the things that's so powerful about having this community here. That we come together and we say it's okay. It's okay to feel this way. It's okay that, I know centers where people won't show up if they're not feeling happy because of how people will respond to them not feeling happy. And we don't do that here. We really allow people to be who they are, where they are, in that moment, loving them. The love in this place is amazing. And that really is uplifting for all of us, every one of us, all the time, to be okay with how we're doing. So I came out of that, had an incredible visit with my son the rest of the time he was here, continued to celebrate my wife in her great success here, and thought I wanted to share this with you guys, what I went through. Keeping it real. The spiritual path is an amazing path when we keep it real. There's this phrase that I hear people use all the time. It's called spiritual bypass. I want you to know that I think spiritual bypass is a good thing. I think what people are calling spiritual bypass is spiritual baloney. And it's different. If you spiritually can get to a place of embodiment and bypassing having to dig into whatever those feelings were, to where it's embodied and you lift yourself up, it worked. If you're acting as if you're lifted up, that's what people are calling spiritual bypass, and I call that spiritual baloney. Right? But these spiritual principles are powerful, incredibly powerful, when we are willing to dig deep enough into them, when we are willing to be with them and hold on to them. Transformation does not rectify, it transmutes. Man, you hear me say that over and over, and I keep saying it because it's so darn important. Our egos, our natural way of being seems to be to fix things. We want to fix whatever is not working without recognizing that actually it is working. And if we were into our soul's intention, if we were connected to that higher part of ourselves, we'd see that. It goes back to Wu Wei. We'd see that. We'd see that forcing means we simply haven't found the pop. You guys remember my analogy of the jar. I found out that some of you didn't know about that. That if you're struggling with the jar, if you pop it at the bottom, the top comes right off. Well, I keep asking myself, anytime I find myself struggling, where's the pop? And then I sit back and I wait and see. Our impatience can lead to shame. Our sense of we should be doing this, our shoulding, leads to shame. There is no should. We're all here just doing the best we can, including me. We're all just doing the best we can. And we have a tremendous community here to support us in that, to feel good about that. where I can get up here and say, I didn't have such a great week, but it turned out fantastic. What if we can take a look at that, right? If we can be real with ourselves, because that's what it takes. It takes being real about what's really going on with you. Instead of saying, no, I'm fine. I could have said that. I'm fine. To myself even. Forget what you say to others, but what are you telling yourself? Are you being honest with how you're really feeling? Because if you are, then you can take a look at what tool might actually work to support you in shifting. But if you keep telling yourself you're fine, then what tool are you going to go for? I don't need a tool, I'm fine. Door's falling off the hinges. You need a screwdriver to get it back in. No, that door works fine. It doesn't need to be screwed back in. That's what we do with ourselves if we're not being on top of being honest. So I have this standard that I bring out for myself every morning of my highest and best. And then I'm honest with myself about how the day goes, not to put myself down, not to make myself less, but just because this is how we practice. This is how we practice. Who am I being now? So how would you guys like to go through, let me put you through the visualization I do each morning for my highest and best. Would you like to give that a shot? All right. So take a deep breath. Close your eyes and relax. And imagine yourself on a path. It is the perfect path. It is your path. And it leads to your sanctuary. Your perfect, wonderful sanctuary. How it feels. How it looks. How it sounds is absolutely perfect. And in the middle of this sanctuary, there's a chair. It is the perfect chair. So perfect that when you go and sit in it, you feel the ah. Now take another deep breath and relax even more. Now imagine yourself being your absolute best. Whatever that looks like to you, in your health, in your interactions with others, in your interaction with the events of your day, how you're responding is from that higher self, reveling in your soul's intention. This isn't about how the events turn out. This is simply about how you are being, no matter how the events turn out. You feel it deep. The joy, the magnificence of your beingness, to know that this is who you are, no matter what is in your life. Imagine feeling like this, no matter what the circumstance. Take another deep breath and breathe this, who you are being, even deeper into your bones. And when you're ready, come back to the room. Imagine feeling like that whole day, not being thrown by the events of your life. How good that feels. No matter what goes on, you get to feel like that. Practice that. And during your day, remember the question, who am I being now? Bring in that visualization into your day, into that moment, to the best you can. Took me years to see some of that integration occur. It was totally worth it. And I promise it'll be worth it for you. Thank you. I love you.